She decided to go outside and return to where she was brought when they teleported to David's house. On the balcony, the cold wind embraced her. She wondered if David and the others had arrived at their destination. She wanted to know where they were and what place they were in. Were they in the next town? These were questions she hadn't asked David or Justin. The balcony was wide, and she could see the front yard of David's house. Lampposts surrounded the area, leaving no dark spots except for the forest at the boundary, which the lampposts did not light up. The cold wind brushed her cheeks, and the dew on the balcony railings felt like ice water. She overlooked the scenery, imagining how beautiful it would be at sunrise. She wanted to see the sunrise. The coldness of the weather matched her life, she thought. She felt sad, uncertain about where her life was heading. Would there be a bright future for her now that her life was in chaos? What if she faced the Mondragons one day? How would she recognize them if they didn't shapeshift? How could she avoid them? Did she always need David by her side? Did this mean she had no freedom? How long would she stay in that house? "Papa, why did you keep so many secrets from me?" she cried again, thinking of her father. No matter his reasons for hiding things from her, she couldn't understand why he chose to do so, especially since they were all each other had in the world. She saw a gazebo in the distance, to the right of the yard. Without hesitation, she went down to it. Despite the cold, her long sleeves kept her warm enough, except for her cheeks and hands. She remembered David's warning not to go past the forest and to stay around the house. As she approached the gazebo, she noticed the large swimming pool, hidden from the balcony. It seemed intentional to keep the pool out of sight. You could only see it when near the gazebo. David's house was huge, and she hadn't explored it all yet. The yard was also vast, and the pool looked beautiful with the surrounding lights. In the distance, there was another structure that looked like a guest house, similar to her mansion, which also had a guest house nearby. The garden around her was beautiful, full of lush roses, reminding her of her own garden, the most beautiful part of their property, which was now gone. She started crying again, remembering how she had lost her nanny, her father, and the things her mother had left behind, including her garden and Rhonda, her mother's horse. "Mama, what will happen to me now? You and Papa are both gone. Are you together now? Please don't abandon me, I need you," she whispered to herself, sobbing as tears streamed down her face. She stood outside the gazebo, looking at the flowers and taking in the surroundings. She entered the gazebo while wiping her tears. She sat on a soft, wide chair that could also serve as a bed. From there, she could clearly see the forest from the lamppost. She lay down, closed her eyes slightly, and calmed her breathing. It was almost morning, and she wanted to see where the sun would rise. Suddenly, she wondered, where is the road? How do you leave David's property? She hadn't seen a road when she came down from the gazebo earlier. She wanted to find it. Maybe David's garage was hidden because she hadn't seen any cars or even a garage. Out of curiosity, she got up and went outside the gazebo, looking for David's garage. The sun was about to rise, and she wanted to see which direction was east from where she stood. She approached the swimming pool, enjoying the sight of the water but knowing it was very cold. She looked up at the sky and watched it for a few seconds. She wanted to ask, why was this path given to her? In her mind, she realized she had been outside for a while. The sky was gradually getting brighter, and the sun was rising in the east, right in front of the swimming pool. Seeing the sunrise eased her mind a bit. The view from David's property was stunning, the distant landscapes were beautiful, and the mountains were visible far away, surrounded by dense forests. Where could the road out be? Where did David's car go when they left? Her eyes searched for the garage. Now she could see the whole area. David's property was on top of a hill. The surroundings were filled with beautiful plants, many of them roses in all colors. The sight was delightful, and she could see fog in the distance. The warmth of the sun felt good on her skin. In the distance, two men were watching her, Jacob and Gabriel. They had been observing Shanta from their guest house balcony, where they had slept. When they sensed Shanta's presence, they came out to monitor her movements without interfering, ensuring her safety. Jacob's admiration for Shanti was evident, and Gabriel noticed it too. Gabriel smiled as he watched Jacob, who couldn't take his eyes off Shanti even from a distance. Gabriel laughed. "I've never seen you like this, Jacob. I noticed Shanti feels uneasy with your stares. Don't make it too obvious, bro. You know it's against the rules, right?" Gabriel said seriously. Jacob looked at him silently, then replied with a bitter smile, "I know, even looking is forbidden?" While watching Shanti, Jacob admitted to himself that he had never been so affected by a woman before. Shanti wasn't quite an adult yet, she was still a teenager, almost 18. Meanwhile, he was already 25. Shanti would soon become a full-fledged adult when she turned 18. In their group of 7, he was known as the best player because many women chased him, yet no one had ever captured his elusive heart. Was his heart really elusive? Why did he feel so happy just watching a woman from afar? He was hurt seeing Shanti cry earlier and wanted to comfort her, but he restrained himself. Now Gabriel had noticed his feelings. Was he that obvious? He was new to this feeling of liking a woman. Fate was being playful. Why Shanti, who was off limits? Was this his karma for all the women he made cry? Some even begged him to love them? Was it his fault he didn't feel anything for them? Now his world had turned upside down. He was pained by Shanti's struggles, and now she was under David's care, and their mission was to keep her from the Mondragons and help her complete her mission. His greatest enemy now was his own heart. Gabriel laughed. "Jacob, I warned you before, be careful with women. Karma is real," he said with a laugh. Instead of getting annoyed, Jacob stayed silent, knowing Gabriel loved to tease, especially with Justin. They watched Shanti move around the house, her movements mesmerizing Jacob. He had never seen such beauty that drove him crazy. Why was he feeling this way now? In the past, women would undress in front of him, but he felt nothing. Now he felt like he was suffering. He needed to control himself more to avoid Gabriel's teasing. Especially when Justin found out, the teasing would never end. Annoying life, he thought. They saw Lorena come out onto the balcony and go down to Shanti. The two talked for a while before Shanti returned to the gazebo and sat down, enjoying the scenery. Lorena went back inside the house. Jacob and Gabriel could hear their conversation because one of Gabriel's powers was the ability to hear distant sounds selectively. He could also share what he heard with others if they touched him or were connected to his body. Jacob moved closer to Gabriel, listening to their conversation. "What we're doing isn't right. We're interfering too much. Lorena isn't a threat, so we don't need to eavesdrop on their conversation, do we?" Gabriel said, watching Shanti in the gazebo. Jacob didn't respond. He just turned around and went back inside the guest house, leaving Gabriel outside alone to keep watch. The scenery around her was truly beautiful. She waited for Lorena to return, knowing she had gone to get breakfast since she wanted to eat outside. She had also asked Lorena to join her for the meal. After a while, Lorena came out with Samuel, both carrying trays of food. Samuel greeted her warmly and respectfully, and after setting up the meal, he went back inside, leaving Lorena to join her for breakfast. They ate together, and the food prepared by Laura was delicious. During their meal, Lorena shared a lot of information about David and his family. She referred to David's mother as Madame Valerie. When Valerie died, Lorena lived at Marco's house. Marco had temporarily brought her to stay with them to take care of Shanti because they didn't trust anyone else with the task. Her heart swelled with emotion at the siblings' concern for her. She realized their deep care stemmed from the fact that her father had saved David's mother twice from the Mondragons. Now, she understood why the siblings were so devoted to her. After they ate, and Lorena had cleared their meal, she invited Shanti to take a walk near the horse stable at the far end of David's property, close to the forest boundary. That's when she remembered Justin mentioning they should go horseback riding. Shanti accepted Lorena's invitation to look at the horses. As they headed to the stable, Shanti asked Lorena where the exit road was. She couldn't see David's garage from outside. Where did David's vehicles pass through that night? Lorena pointed it out, but Shanti couldn't see it because the exit path was camouflaged. David's vehicles were on the ground floor and not visible from outside. Shanti was amazed to learn this. As they approached the stable, they could see the horses in the distance, beautiful even from afar. Some were tied up, while others roamed freely within the fenced area where the horses were allowed. Sir David has 9 horses here, 7 are their own, among the 3 siblings and 4 friends. Sometimes they ride through the forest. They enjoy strolling inside, Lorena explained as she pointed towards the forest and looked at Shanti. Shanti followed Lorena's gesture and saw a path through the forest. Is that the exit out of here? Is that where David went through last night? She asked Lorena. Lorena nodded. Lorena, since you know about the Mondragons, does that mean you know what they are? Although hesitant to be direct with Lorena, she needed to ask, hoping to gain more knowledge. I don't want to talk about those things, Miss Shanti, because I don't know the whole truth. All I know is that Madame Valerie always mentioned to me that she will never forget how Don Lorenzo saved her from the Mondragons until one day, she couldn't escape from the Mondragons anymore. If there's anything deeper than that, I don't know. I'm sorry, Lorena explained respectfully. Shanti understood Lorena and didn't press further. It was delightful to watch the horses, reminding her of her own horse, Rhonda. She missed it, as there wasn't a day she didn't take it out. They would stroll around their mansion or in the vineyard every day. Sir Justin, exclaimed Lorena when she saw Justin approaching them. He was dressed in a t-shirt, tattered pants, and leather boots, looking very handsome. She also noticed that Justin no longer had any bruises or wounds on his face and arms. It was surprising how quickly his injuries had healed. Justin approached them with a smile, looking at her. Are you ready, Shanti? Didn't I tell you we'd go horseback riding today? Justin said with a smile, gazing at her. Although she returned the smile, her eyes showed surprise at the rapid healing of his wounds, leaving no trace. His skin was smooth as if nothing had happened. Justin understood Shanti's reaction. I know, Shanti, one of our advantages is this, like this, our physical wounds heal quickly, and we can heal our injuries. Right, Lorena? Justin said with a smile, looking at Lorena. Lorena smiled at his reaction. Get used to it, Miss Shanti, if you're always with them. In the past, Sir Justin would always come home with bruises and wounds, and I would worry, but for them, it's nothing, it's part of their job. But by the next day, it's gone. Only now it took a little longer to heal. Usually, it didn't take 24 hours, Lorena said, looking at Justin. Still, I worry about them because I don't want to see them like that. Lorena's voice held sadness. Suddenly, the mood became serious among the 3 of them. Enough of the drama, come on, Shanti, choose your horse, they are all friendly, Justin said, leading the way to the gate where the horses were. By the way, have you had breakfast? Coffee? Tea? Justin turned to make sure they had eaten before riding. Lorena and Shanti nodded together. Shanti approached Justin and followed him. Shanti, here with us, we really don't eat together in the morning because we wake up at different times. Like now, you woke up earlier than me, Justin said shyly with a smile. Along with the closing of the gate, Lorena was left outside the gate because she didn't want to come along. She just said she would watch and claimed she didn't know how to ride a horse. She asked permission to get a drink inside the house. Lorena left Justin and Shanti briefly as they chose horses inside the stable. But during lunch, we all eat together until dinner as long as we are here, Justin added, looking at her. She just smiled back at Justin, nodding, indicating she understood what he was saying to her. Not far away, the 2 male friends were having breakfast in the gazebo, Jacob and Gabriel. They imitated what Shanti did, having breakfast in the gazebo, finding it more enjoyable to eat with full eyes on the surrounding view. While eating, they also observed what Justin was doing, watching them choose horses in the distance. I also want to ride a horse now, let's join them, Gabriel said, looking at Jacob. His eyes inviting, his voice excited. They used to do this often when they were at David's house. They each had their own horse. David intentionally made sure they each had their own horse. Jacob didn't respond, just nodded while chewing, showing he agreed with Gabriel's desire. On the other hand, he was also excited. Gabriel looked at him with a smile. I heard that Shanti is good at riding horses. It's just a story, but now we'll see. Gabriel's excitement was evident in his voice and eyes, while Jacob kept his eyes on Shanti. I like all of them, Justin, but that one catches my attention, Shanti said while pointing to the white horse near them. She remembered Rhonda when she saw the white horse. Justin smiled as he looked at the horse Shanti chose. Ah, that's Jay. Come on, Jay. Let's go. Justin called out to the white horse. Do you know this is Jake's horse? He named it himself because whenever Jake is here, this is the one he always likes. Justin explained enthusiastically, happy to share this information. It was more amusing to see the horse approach Justin as he called out to it. It was clear that the horses were well taken care of and gentle, not getting agitated when they saw her, not making noise. Justin brought the white horse closer to her and signaled that she could touch it. She stroked the horse's mane. Justin just smiled and watched her. Justin went to the other stable and chose the brown horse, skillfully mounting it. Shanti watched him with a smile. The brown horse neighed and showed off its graceful stance with Justin riding behind it. This is Jay-Z, Shanti. This is my horse here at David's place. Justin introduced his horse, turning the horse around and showing off its skills in standing and neighing, impressing Shanti and handling his horse like a true warrior. The white horse also neighed as if responding to Justin's horse's neighing, standing up and showing off its skills. Shanti stepped back slightly as she watched in awe at the impressive display of their horses. She smiled as she stroked the horse's mane. Jay, you don't want to lose, right? Shanti said, and Justin laughed. That's true, Shanti, the owner of that horse doesn't like to lose either, Justin joked. Let's go to the forest, Shanti, follow me when we get out there, Justin said, pointing to the forest path she could see from where they were standing. She nodded. Luckily, she was already wearing a long-sleeved shirt and leather pants, but she was only wearing slippers at home. Justin. I'm just wearing slippers, can I change into shoes? Shanti asked Justin. Justin smiled as he looked at her feet and nodded. She hurried out of the gate and ran back to the house. On her way up the balcony, she met Lorena carrying water and juice on a food tray. She told her she was just getting shoes because she and Justin were going horseback riding. She went to the room, searched for leather boots in the shoe cabinet, saw many pairs of women's leather boots, quickly put on the black ones she chose. Luckily, the shoes fit her, just a little loose. She also grabbed a face towel. Before she left, she glanced at the clock. It was only 7:30 a.m., still early, as if they were about to do some exercise. She also noticed the groceries that were untouched, resting on the side table of the bed. I'll take care of you later when I return, Shanti said, looking at the grocery bags. Before finally leaving the room, where she met Marco at the hallway between the dining area and living room. She was surprised to see Marco looking different, with no wounds or bruises on his face and arms. Even the large wound on his arm and neck had completely disappeared like Justin's. Shanti. Good morning, Marco exclaimed with a smile as he came from the dining room. Good morning, Marco, she replied with a smile, gazing at Marco's handsome appearance in his shirt and cargo pants. Even his blonde hair was tousled. She smiled even though she was amazed, just like Justin. Do they share the same power as Justin? Hey. I can read your mind, Marco said with a smile. This one? He asked, pointing to his face. Yes. I'm doing well, Shanti, don't be surprised. Get used to it. Whenever you're with us, you'll get used to it too, Marco said casually, as if to suggest that such things shouldn't be taken too seriously. His eyes were serious, but his lips smiled. Hey, I know where you're going, I'll come along, Marco said to Shanti. I'll follow you, Shanti, just need to get my shoes, Marco said to Shanti, then headed to his room in the opposite hallway. Shanti then left the house, heading towards the stable. She could see Gabriel and Jacob already there inside the stable, riding their horses, talking but looking at her. They were smiling. But Jacob really stood out, from his gaze, his stature, his movements. He seemed like a character from an anime or comics. His aura was unique. It was like she only saw men like them in magazines. Especially when the 7 friends were together. Luckily, her heart was strong. None of them made her nervous when she saw them, but she couldn't deny her admiration for their physical appearance, not to mention their powers. How many beings like them exist in this world? She wondered. Her life suddenly felt like a fairy tale. As she walked closer to the stable, she noticed a table and an outdoor umbrella set up outside, prepared by Samuel and Lorena. On the table were drinks ready in case they needed for a drink. Lorena smiled at her as she approached. "Miss Shanty, you might need this," Lorena said, handing her a hair tie. She was amazed by what Lorena handed her, something she had been looking for a long time. She smiled as she took it and tied her hair gracefully. "Now she looks gorgeously beautiful." "You're so beautiful, Miss Shanty. I've never seen anyone as beautiful as you," Lorena said with admiration in her eyes. She returned the smile. She drank water from what Lorena had prepared. Before entering the gate and approaching the white horse, although her eyes were on the white horse, she felt the full attention of her companions focused on her. They watched her every move, eyes admiring her beauty and grace. Approaching Jay, the white horse, it was evident that the horse recognized her. She first stroked it and said, "Let's go for a walk, Jay." She went to the side of the horse and skillfully mounted it. The onlookers around admired her movements and how she carried herself gracefully while riding the horse. This was what she grew up with, learned from her mother who trained her with horses since she was a child. She glanced at the three men beside her. She noticed Jacob. There was something different about Jacob's eyes, something unique about this man, she thought. But she didn't want to show any discomfort, and when she found the opportunity, she would also tell him like she did with Jake. Justin moved first, riding his horse. He opened the gate to the forest, easily reaching the lock from his saddle, designed to be accessible even while mounted. He signaled for Shanty to follow. Shanty immediately followed behind Justin, with Gabriel and Jacob close behind. They saw Marco running towards them, shouting for them to wait. The three men laughed as they watched him. They waited for Marco, who quickly reached them, knowing exactly where his horse was. He chose his black horse, mounted it, and showed off a bit. His companions enjoyed watching his little performance. Shanty, in particular, felt a sense of camaraderie among them, like siblings, though she didn't yet know how their friendship started. She figured she'd learn eventually. "Shanty, we'll get news from David soon. He said he'd call after lunch," Marco said, looking at Shanty. "Thanks, Marco," she replied, feeling grateful to the group. She knew Justin had suggested the horseback ride to cheer her up. "Let's go," Justin called, guiding his horse forward. Shanty followed, with the three men behind her. The horses walked at first, then Justin gradually increased their speed. They all followed, showing their skill in riding, especially Shanty, who didn't want to be outdone by the men. Her companions were impressed. As her horse ran, Shanty looked around. The forest was thick, like a virgin forest, with only their path being passable. The tall trees and bird sounds were relaxing. Sunlight reached only the path through the dense canopy. Suddenly, Marco sped up like lightning, startling Shanty. Marco passed Justin, making Gabriel and Jacob shout and laugh in admiration. Shanty felt a competitive urge and saw Justin chasing Marco until they were out of sight. Jacob stayed close to her. "Jay, let's catch up to them," Shanty urged, spurring her horse to a faster run. Her horse responded quickly, running swiftly. The two men followed, amazed at her riding skills but struggling to keep up. As the horse galloped, Shanty's body moved in rhythm with its motion. Her hair danced in the wind, as if she was moving in harmony with the breeze with every leap of the horse while it ran. Jacob's admiration for Shanty grew as he observed her skill in horseback riding. Occasionally, Shanty would glance back at them, and he could see a unique look in her eyes, a gaze of determination. He couldn't believe that the girl before him was only 17 years old, so adept at riding a horse. Not to mention her inherent grace and beauty, which only added to his growing admiration for her. Shanty soon saw Justin and pushed Jay even faster, overtaking Justin, who laughed in surprise. They all raced to be first on the path. Shanty saw Marco ahead and spurred Jay faster, shouting excitedly. She marveled at Jay's abilities, smiling as she imagined Rhonda. She caught up to Marco, who laughed wildly as she passed him, determined to catch up. The group followed closely behind, their horses' hoofs echoing through the forest. They reached a small house by the roadside. Shanta's horse slowed down, and so did the others. The horses whinnied as they stopped. Shanta smiled at her companions, seeing admiration on their faces. They smiled and shook their heads at her, communicating silently. Shanta dismounted and patted Jay. "Great job, Jay. You're amazing," she praised her horse with a smile. She looked at her companions, who also dismounted. Her gaze lingered on Jacob, whose smile captivated her with its charm. "Don Lorenzo was right, Shanti," Marco exclaimed. "We just need more practice." "Next time, let's not get beaten by a girl," Justin joked, making them all laugh. Shanti shook her head, laughing. She took off her hair tie to fix her hair, which had gotten messy from the wind. She used a face towel from her pocket to wipe her sweat, unaware that one man watched her every move, captivated. Gabriel laughed loudly, eyeing Jacob, who looked at Gabriel silently. Their eyes communicated a teasing message. Jacob wished Gabriel would get the hint and stop teasing him. Justin and Marco, oblivious to the joke, also laughed. Shanta looked at them, puzzled by what was funny. "We can't let a 17-year-old girl beat us in horseback riding, guys. It's a huge slap to our pride," Justin said, his face comically exaggerated. Shanti and the others laughed again. Jacob found it torturous to see Shanta's beauty, especially when she laughed, feeling a mix of admiration and frustration. "I'm glad I made you laugh, Shanti," Justin said, smiling at her. Her smile faded as she turned serious. "Thank you, Justin. I know you did this to cheer me up," Shanti replied sincerely, looking at Justin. "You all treat me like a sister, ever since I arrived." The atmosphere grew serious. "This is the boundary of our property, Shanti," Marco said, pointing to the house. David had this house built as a resting spot. It's small but complete inside, with a place to sleep and food. Unfortunately, I didn't bring the key, so we can't go inside today. Shanta looked around the forest and the house. It seemed eerie to live alone in a house in the middle of the forest, resembling a haunted house despite its small balcony and stone benches. The house had 2 solar lampposts at each corner, likely lighting up at night. "We've come a long way. I'm glad you stopped here, Shanti," Marco said. "This was my planned stopping point if I arrived first," he added, smiling. "Did you know there's a waterfall in the forest?" "We can't go there today because it's not in the plan and it's quite a walk," Gabriel said, looking at Shanti. "Next time, we'll go there," Jacob added, his eyes shining with excitement. "Really?" "I'll look forward to it, Jacob," Shanti replied, smiling. Jacob's face lit up at her response. Gabriel smiled at Jacob. "We should head back. David might call early with news about Shanta's mansion," Marco said. "He warned us not to go beyond the forest, and here we are." "Shanta might tell on us to David," Justin joked, making Shanta feel uneasy. She wasn't good at lying and didn't know how to respond. They laughed at her reaction. "Don't worry, Shanti, it's just a joke," Justin quickly reassured her, seeing her discomfort.